Today I'm going to tell you the epic story of Inanna's descent and initiation. This ancient myth about a warrior queen's heroic journey was recorded on clay tablets over 4,000 years ago in Sumer, which is now Iraq. Great stories are maps showing us how we got here and how to get from here to there. And because the story of Inanna's descent parallels a modern woman's inner journey during a childbearing year, it offers us the perfect story map. My name is Pam England, and I've been enamored with this story for over 3 decades. It's one of my inner maps. Now, this first recording is the story of Inanna's call, preparation, and descent. The story of her return will be told in part 2. Innana was a woman of power. She was a warrior, a poet, the wife of Dumuzi, and the mother of 2 sons. She was the beloved princess of 7 temples. One day, Innana began to hear a call from the great below. From the great above, she opened her ear to the great below. Innana turned her mind to the great below. At first, she tried to ignore the call, perhaps because, like most of us, she did not feel ready for the changes she sensed would follow. Or maybe she planned to do it later when the time was right. She told herself she had a lot of responsibilities. If I go to the great below, who will manage the markets, lead the ceremonies, and bless the babies? But there's not just one call. You do not need to worry that you will miss your call. The invitation from love to love is continuous. The soul is ever inviting you to discover something you do not yet know, to do the thing you have not yet done, but were born to. Innana heard the call in the background during her busy days and in her night dreams, and finally, when she could no longer ignore her invitation, she answered yes, and instantly everything was set into motion. In preparation for her journey to the underworld, to her inner world, Innana's first task was to abandon her 7 temples. In Sumer, temples, or ziggurats as they were called then, were bustling community centers, farmers' markets, and spiritual sanctuaries. It is not possible to continue managing all of the affairs of the upper world, working overtime, and also to make time to prepare for a life-changing initiation. And so Innana had to abandon her temples. In Uruk, Innana abandoned her white pillar temple to descend into the underworld. In Batibira, she abandoned her temple to descend to the inner world. Innana renounced her temples in Zabalam, Adab, Nippur, Kish, and Akkad. And when Innana turned away from the 7th temple, her mind's eye turned inward, and the temples disappeared. Innana's next task was to gather her 7 royal warrior Maida. The ancient words May or Maida refer to the garments, accessories, and accoutrements that let others know that Innana is a warrior queen. Thus Innana prepared herself. She arranged her hair and put on her gold crescent moon earrings. She placed the tall crown of the Shugara on her head, a crown adorned with the horns of the wild bull that reached high for heaven. Her crown represents power, strength, divinity, and Innana is poised, balancing that heavy crown on her head. She tied a string of lapis lazuli beads around her neck. Lapis was worn only by royalty in ancient Sumer. Its deep blue color is the color of the third eye of wisdom. It is the color of darkness made visible and represents our encounter with the dark feminine. To protect her heart, she binds around her chest the warrior breastplate that she shaped with her own hands, upon which, to show her bravado and taunt her foes, she wrote her battle cry, "Come, man, come." And she draped her body in her royal robe, woven with camel wool, dyed plum red, and trimmed in gold and white geometric patterns. Over her wrist, Innana slipped a gold bracelet, an heirloom passed down through generations of strong women. Her gold bracelet is much more than an accessory. It is a reminder that her true self is malleable. Like gold, her soul can be hammered thin without breaking. As a queen and a priestess, Innana practiced divine justice. This is represented by the royal lapis ring and measuring rod she holds in her hand. It represents her power of discernment and measured wisdom, and her power to rule her attention and awareness. Just then, Ninchibur, her faithful maidservant, arrived in time to gently paint Innana's eyes with kohl, which is eyeshadow. Her maidservant gently applied the blue-black kohl with a carved ivory pen. With each stroke over her left eye, Innana prayed to see beyond the darkness. And with each stroke over her right eye, she prayed for a glimpse of the Great Mother. Ninchibur is Innana's faithful maidservant. Her name means Queen of the East. They fought side by side in battle, and now Ninchibur is her confidant, her advisor. And seeing Innana dressed for a great journey, Ninchibur asked, "Innana, where are you going dressed like this?" "I am going to the Underworld, to the unknown." "What are you thinking, Innana? You know that no one returns unchanged or unscathed. If something happens to you, I shall feel responsible that I did not dissuade you, because if this descent changes you, our cherished relationship will change. You don't have to do this. Don't take the risk." Innana listened to Ninchibur's heartfelt pleas to not do the thing that Ninchibur was not called to do herself. Innana also knew that this journey would take her into terra incognita, into the unknown. And as a warrior, Innana knew that she could be tested within her last ounce of strength, and that there's a limit to human endurance. So she could not leave finishing her rite of passage to chance. And so she made a plan with Ninchibur. "I must go, Ninchibur, and you cannot go with me. And yet, because you care for me so deeply, it is to you I entrust the task of ensuring my return. Watch the sun and the moon, and if I do not return in 3 days and 3 nights, put on your cloth of grieving and beat the drum around the temples. Gather the people to call me back from the underworld. And then go to each of the 3 elders and tell them what has happened until one agrees to rescue me. Knowing that you have my back will allow me to be more fearless in the underworld and to cross thresholds I might otherwise hesitate to cross for fear no one would know to come to my aid." And so it was agreed. Ninchibur returned to her life in Sumer, and Innana walked away from her life as she had known it. Her initiation begins. On the threshold of the ordeal, do not think so much. Do not calculate. Just begin. Do not hesitate. Begin. Don't look back. Take one step forward and then another. With the preparations complete, Innana goes to the underworld, her inner world. She enters the unknown. By and by, Innana comes to a gate. She knocks. A voice behind the gate calls out. It is Bidu, the gatekeeper, whose name means to open in Sumerian. In ancient stories, gatekeepers guard the treasure within, and they prepare and test the initiate on the threshold to ensure she's ready to receive it. And so he said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Queen Innana. I am a warrior, a poet, the wife of Demutzi, and priestess of 7 temples. Let me in." "Ah, not so fast, Innana. Why have you come to this place from which no one returns unchanged?" "I am answering an invitation." Bidu opens the first gate. And as Innana steps across the threshold without saying a word, the gatekeeper lifts the crown from her head held high. She protests, "Give it back." Bidu responds, "You will not be needing your tall crown in this place. Trying to balance this crown will just throw you off balance. Innana, the ways of the underworld are ancient, tried, and true. We do not bargain in this realm. In crossing this first threshold, you have left your ordinary world behind. The rules and decorum of the upper world do not always apply here. With your footprints on the threshold as your signature, you are agreeing to abide in the heart and in the mystery of life and birth. Be on your way." So Innana follows the path until she comes to a second gate, and she knocks. Bidu asks Innana again, "Who are you? Why has your heart led you on a path from which no one returns unchanged or unscathed?" And Innana repeats again that she is a queen, a warrior, a poet, a wife, mother, and priestess of 7 temples. In the same way that a modern woman on this journey in labor might answer Bidu by saying, "I am 39 plus 2 weeks gestation. I am trained in such and such childbirth preparation method. I am informed by the crown of the 7 books I carry on my head. My hematocrit is 37, and I carry this 3-page birth plan. Follow my plan and let me in." In due time, Bidu opens the gate, and as Innana rushes through, the gatekeeper takes from her the mother blessing beads tied around her neck. Again she protests, "What is this? Give them back!" Bidu reminds her that the ways of the underworld, the inner journey, are ancient. She may not bargain. And so Innana continued walking. She went down, 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 to the left and down, a sharp turn to the right. Innana slogged through mud. Initiations in the underworld, it turns out, are really messy. And finally she comes to the third gate. And she knocks. Now, upon their return, initiates describe passing through a gate of great doubt, often a gate of great mercy, often one of despair, and almost always the gate of holy fucking terror before they reach the threshold of infinite love. You may know that you will come to gates and cross thresholds during your initiation, but there's no way of you knowing when the gates will show up, or how many there might be, or in what order the gates will present themselves. It's just not something you can plan for or control. Biddu asked her again, Innana, who are you? And out of habit, Innana begins to recite her past. Biddu interrupts her and says, don't tell me about your resume in the upper world. Who are you, here and now? Show me. And Innana, the pilgrim, is slowly beginning to realize that her past accomplishments and assertive demands do not impress Biddu. He has heard it all before, and he is not persuaded, even by her impressive resume. He knows he cannot just unbolt the gate and give her a pass before she is ready. In due time, he opens the gate, and she passes the third threshold. Biddu takes her warrior breastplate and whispers to her, unguard your heart, Innana. Now Innana, the initiate, is discovering that the strategies she wielded in the upper world to get her way do not seem to be working so very well in the underworld. Thirsty and tired and disoriented, Innana moves slowly through the labyrinthine twists and turns. Sometimes the path stretches open and becomes easy for a time. And then a boulder appears, or a stream she must climb over or wade through puddles to keep going. Now there is more than one way to cross thresholds. One may trip over, leap over. Passage is hard, uncertain work. Many pilgrims fall asleep at the threshold, but this gives soul time to grow great determination. Biddu waits patiently while soul grows in this kind of sleep between worlds. It is part of the rite of passage to pause, to rest, but do not retreat. Rather, let the thing you fear retreat. The crossing of thresholds often requires deep listening and the strength to reach deep, deep down to connect with some forgotten resource within, or maybe with the ancestors or holies. The fourth gate, the fifth, and the sixth gates, the ritual of crossing the threshold was the same. Innana knocked, and Biddu asked, who are you? Who are you? Why have you come to this place from which you will not return unchanged? And gate by gate, Innana said less and less about her past or about her birth plan. She was entering the deep part, the wordless sensory level of initiation in labor land. And at each gate, the compassionate gatekeeper simply took one thing of value, her moon earrings, her golden bracelet, her royal robe woven with camel wool. In the ancient story, Bidhu, the gatekeeper, never and never asks Innana for permission to take her maida, and he never allows her to bargain or to choose what would be taken. And so it is in a rite of passage. The further and deeper Innana went down the labyrinthine path, the walls became closer and the ceiling lower. In the belly of the underworld it is dark. Innana complained. Bidhu said, "It's dark in here, you say? A torch? You want a torch? No, no, you will not need a torch. Learn to see with your inner eye. See with your whole body-mind." And so Innana did. In the darkness, her hands felt her way through. Using all her senses, she lost track of time. There is no time in love, in soul. She had no idea where she was on the map or how close to finishing she was. Innana walked another 1,000 steps, and so it went. Gate by gate, she considered, indeed, who am I? Who am I without my warrior maida, my priestess maida, my plans? Who am I? The queen was not a queen in the underworld. She was not a priestess in the underworld, not even a poet. She was just another pilgrim, disrobed, naked, and humbled, stripped of everything she identified with. There was one thing that Bidhu could not take from her, and that was her fierce determination to know herself, to love herself without condition. The last gate, low to the ground, she had to get on her hands and knees and crawl through the very narrow passage. And when she cleared, she entered the heart of the underworld, the deepest chamber. She entered the innermost chamber, the temple of love, and sees beyond seeing itself. She sees the one who has been calling her all along. In the ancient story, it is Inanna's sister, queen of the earth, Ereshkigal. But in your journey through birth, it might be your sister Ereshkigal, which is what Joseph Campbell called doing the one forbidden thing. That might be what this was all about for you, doing the one forbidden thing, doing or saying something you have avoided or judged in others or thought you would never do. I will explain Ereshkigal more detail in another recording, but for now, who will be the one calling you through pregnancy, through the labyrinth of birth? It could be an ancestor, a spiritual teacher. It could be your baby calling and calling to you, waiting for its birth. In the epic poem, what happens next is startling. Upon seeing the one who called her on this journey, Innana dies. It's a sudden death, unexpected. No bargaining again, just dies. Now, during a heroic journey or rite of passage, the hero always dies, a little death anyway, not a physical death, or the journey would be over too soon. When the woman looks into the eyes of her newborn for the first time, seeing her child and being seen by her child, a profound love awakens in her. A love so profound, it causes a great and sudden shock to her whole being. And a psychic and physical transfiguration begins. In a rite of passage, there must be a little death. It is a little death, but it is a lasting one. In childbirth, one could say it is the psychic death of the innocent woman or the maiden. Something must die before there can be rebirth. So the maiden must die to allow the mother to be born. And at first, the new mother is a child mother who will later and over time mature into a more experienced, albeit complex mother. And so it's also true for a man or a partner who witnesses the birth of a child. He is undergoing transformation too. This transformation leads to the birth of the father or the other mother. Now this concludes part 1 of the Innana story and the telling of Inanna's call, preparation, and journey to the underworld. Listen to part 2 to hear how Innana makes her return home, which might be a map for you too.